What if I told you that the Bible, the book sitting on your shelf, contains a perfect, 7-step blueprint for not just surviving a recession, but for building generational wealth because of it? Sounds impossible? Sounds like an exaggeration? You see the headlines. You feel the pressure. The cost of everything is rising, and the value of your hard work seems to be shrinking. You worry about your job. You worry about your savings. You worry about the future for your children. You are a person of faith. You work hard. You try to do the right thing. But there is a quiet anxiety, a persistent hum of stress beneath the surface that tells you something is not right. You feel vulnerable, exposed to economic forces you cannot control. Why? Why does this happen to good, hard-working, praying people? The answer is simpler and more profound than you think. It is not a lack of faith. It is not a lack of effort. It is a lack of specific, divine, and practical wisdom. It is a failure to see the stories of the Bible not as ancient histories, but as modern-day economic manuals. Today, we are going to change that. We are going to open the book of Genesis and look at the life of one man who faced a global economic collapse, a 7-year depression that was prophesied to wipe out civilization. His name was Joseph, and the strategies God gave him are just as relevant to your personal economy today as they were to Egypt's national economy thousands of years ago. In this video, we will break down the 7 smart, spirit-led moves Joseph made before the recession hit. These are not theories, these are proven principles, and you must stay until the very end, because the 7th move is the one that separates mere financial survival from absolute economic dominance. It is the principle that the wealthy understand and the struggling overlook, and it is the key that will unlock your financial destiny. The first move Joseph made is the foundation for all the others. It is the one that 99% of people, even believers, get wrong when facing uncertainty. Number 1, he sought divine revelation, not human opinion. When Pharaoh was troubled by his dreams, he called for the magicians and wise men of Egypt. He consulted the experts, the economists, the talking heads of his day, and every single one of them was useless. They had data, but no discernment. They had information, but no revelation. Joseph, on the other hand, stood before the most powerful man on earth and said in Genesis 41 verse 16, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." His starting point was not his own intelligence. It was not market analysis. It was God. He understood that God holds the master plan. The world panics and runs to financial news channels, to internet gurus, to their own fearful calculations. They are listening to the noise of Egypt. The wise, the Josephs of today, they quiet the noise. They go into their prayer closet and they ask the one who knows the end from the beginning, "Lord, what are you saying? What are you showing me?" Your financial future does not begin with a spreadsheet. It begins with surrender. It begins with seeking God's specific strategy for your life, your family, your business. The world offers generic advice. God offers tailored revelation. Joseph's first move was to listen to the right voice. Before you rebalance your portfolio, before you cut your budget, before you make any move based on fear, you must first ask, "God, what is the dream you are giving me for this season?" Because listening is the first act of wisdom, but listening is only the beginning. What you do with that divine information is what separates the prepared from the panicked, which brings us to the second move. Number 2, he presented a detailed plan, not just a dire problem. Think about this. Joseph interpreted the dream. He identified the problem. 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of catastrophic famine. He could have stopped there. He could have dropped the bad news and walked away, a celebrated prophet of doom. But he didn't. He immediately followed the revelation of the problem with a revelation of the solution. In Genesis chapter 41, verses 33 through 36, he lays out a comprehensive national strategy. "And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge. Let him appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest. Store up the grain. This food should be held in reserve." He presented a budget. He presented a leadership structure. He presented a logistics plan. He presented a vision for survival and recovery. This is a profound spiritual and financial principle. Many people are very good at identifying their financial problems. They can tell you exactly how much debt they have. They can complain about their low income. They can lament the state of the economy. They are prophets of their own problem, but they have no written, actionable, step-by-step plan to solve it. A problem without a plan is a prison. A vision without a strategy is a hallucination. God is a God of order, of plans and purposes. When you pray for financial breakthrough, He is not looking for your complaint. He is looking for your plan. He is looking for a vessel He can fill with His wisdom and resources. Joseph's plan is what got him promoted from prisoner to prime minister. Your written plan, your budget, your debt elimination strategy, your investment goals, is what will promote you from financial prisoner to a ruler over your resources. A vague hope is not a strategy. Joseph didn't hope Egypt would be okay. He engineered its survival. You must do the same. If this is already speaking to you, if you are feeling a shift in your spirit, take 1 second to subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into biblical financial wisdom. And I want you to answer this in the comments below. Do you have a written financial plan? No shame, just be honest. Write yes or not yet. Acknowledging where you are is the first step to getting where God wants you to be. Now, at the heart of Joseph's plan was a principle so simple, yet so radical, that it defies all modern consumer culture. Number 3, he implemented a system of disciplined, non-negotiable saving. The plan was not complicated. Genesis 41 verse 34 is explicit. Collect 1/5 of the harvest of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. 1/5, 20%. This wasn't a friendly suggestion. It wasn't save if you feel like it, or save what's left over. It was a mandatory, top-line, first fruits directive. Before anyone ate, before anyone celebrated the abundance, before anyone upgraded their lifestyle, 20% was taken off the top and put into the storehouse. This is the divine principle of paying your future first. The world's logic, the logic of the foolish, is to earn, spend, and then see if anything is left to save. It is a logic of scarcity and leftovers. God's economy, as demonstrated by Joseph, is the exact opposite. You earn, you set aside a dedicated portion for the future first, and then you live on the rest. It is a logic of abundance and intention. That 20% was the seed for Egypt's salvation. What is your 20%? What is the non-negotiable portion of your income that you are setting aside for your future, for the inevitable famines of life, a job loss, a health crisis, an economic downturn? Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down." The 7 years of plenty were a test of character. The foolish in Egypt would have seen the bumper crops and gorged themselves. They would have bought bigger homes, better chariots, and lived lavishly, assuming the good times would never end. The wise, under Joseph's leadership, saw the abundance as an opportunity and a responsibility. They delayed their gratification to secure their future. Your discipline in your season of plenty will determine your deliverance in your season of lack. But saving is only half the battle. Where you keep what you save is just as critical, and Joseph understood a principle of security that many modern people tragically ignore. This brings us to the 4th move. He centralized and secured the assets. Joseph's plan didn't stop at telling people to save. Look closely at Genesis 41 verse 35. Let them store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. The grain wasn't left in 1,000 different barns across the country, vulnerable to rot, to pests, or to panicked citizens who might raid their own supply prematurely. It was collected, it was centralized, it was placed under guard, under a single wise authority. This is a masterclass in stewardship and risk management. In today's terms, this means your savings and investments should not be a chaotic, scattered mess. Your storehouse needs to be managed and protected. Do you have money sitting in a zero-interest account being eaten by inflation? Are your investments in speculative ventures that you don't understand? Is your financial future dependent on a single income stream or a single asset? Joseph diversified his collection points in the cities, but he unified his management strategy. This speaks to having a clear system. It means having designated accounts for specific purposes, an emergency fund that is liquid and secure, retirement accounts that are managed for long-term growth, investment accounts that are aligned with a clear strategy. It means protecting your provision from the pests of inflation, from the thieves of high fees and bad advice, and from the rot of inaction. Don't just save, you must secure. Don't just accumulate, you must administrate. Joseph knew that an unguarded surplus is just a future loss waiting to happen. Your financial house must have walls. It must have a gatekeeper. That gatekeeper is your wisdom and your intentional, ordered system. Now, this next move is where we transition from defensive preparation to offensive positioning. This is where Joseph's genius begins to reveal a mindset that builds empires. Number 5, he understood that surplus was for future opportunity, not just present consumption. The scripture is staggering. Genesis 41 verses 48 and 49 say, Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance. He stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Let that sink in. The surplus was so vast it was immeasurable. Here lies the great divide between the wise steward and the foolish consumer. The foolish person sees a bonus, a raise, or a business windfall, and their first thought is, how can I spend this? What can I buy? They see surplus as a means to inflate their lifestyle. A bigger house, a newer car, a more expensive vacation. They consume the seed. Joseph saw the immeasurable surplus, and he didn't see a bigger pyramid for himself. He saw leverage. He saw power. He saw the salvation of a nation. He saw the future. He understood that the purpose of abundance is to create options for the future. Every dollar of surplus you have is a seed. You can eat that seed now through consumption, or you can store that seed to plant in a future season, a season when seed will be incredibly scarce and incredibly valuable. The discipline to see your surplus not as extra spending money, but as strategic opportunity capital, is the mindset that separates the rich from the poor. The 7 years of plenty were a test. Would Egypt consume its seed, or would it store it? Your current season of income, no matter how big or small, is your test. Are you using every extra dollar to build a storehouse for future opportunities, or are you just expanding your barn to live a more comfortable life today? Your answer to that question is writing your financial future, and it sets the stage for a massive power shift. The next move Joseph made reveals how he leveraged this surplus to become the economic ruler of the known world. Number 6. He established a system of exchange, not of entitlement. When the famine hit and the world was starving, they came to Joseph, and Joseph opened the storehouses. But he did not give the grain away for free. This is a challenging principle for many, but it is a critical one. God's kingdom economy is based on value, work, and exchange, not on handouts that create dependency. The book of Genesis, chapter 47, outlines the process. First, the people brought their money. Verse 14. Joseph collected all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan in payment for the grain. When their money ran out, they brought their livestock. Verse 17. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for their horses, their sheep and goats, their cattle and donkeys. When their livestock was gone, they brought their land and themselves. It was a sequential exchange of assets. Joseph wasn't being cruel, he was being wise. He was maintaining economic order and personal dignity. A handout can feel good for a moment, but it robs the recipient of their agency and creates a cycle of dependency. An exchange, however, affirms value on both sides. Joseph was teaching a powerful lesson. In a time of crisis, you must have something of value to bring to the marketplace. The storehouses were not a charity. They were the world's most powerful bank, and grain was the currency. What is your grain? What skill? What service? What asset are you cultivating now that will have immense value when times get tough? Are you investing in skills, building a business, creating intellectual property, or are you simply a consumer? In a recession, consumers become victims. Producers, those who have stored value and have something to offer, become kings. Joseph had the grain, therefore he made the rules. You must build your storehouse of value so that you too can operate from a position of strength, not desperation. And this brings us to the final, most powerful move. Everything we have discussed, the divine revelation, the detailed plan, the radical saving, the secure storage, the opportunity mindset, the system of exchange, it all culminates in this one masterstroke. This is the move that separates the millionaires from the billionaires. This is the secret to creating true generational wealth. The 7th move. He acquired income-producing assets during the downturn. Read Genesis 47 verse 20. It is one of the most significant economic statements in the entire Bible. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. The Egyptians, one and all, sold their fields because the famine was so severe upon them. The land became Pharaoh's. This is the great wealth transfer. While the world was in survival mode, panicked, desperate, selling off their family inheritance for a loaf of bread, Joseph was in acquisition mode. He used his stored-up capital, the grain, to buy the one asset that produces all the grain, the land. He didn't just trade his savings for their trinkets. He traded his savings for their factories. He bought the means of production. History shows us time and time again that recessions and depressions are the single greatest opportunities for the transfer of wealth. When fear is at its peak, asset prices plummet. Stocks, real estate, businesses, they all go on sale. Those who are unprepared, who have no grain in their storehouse, are forced to sell their assets at the worst possible time just to survive. But those who are prepared, the Josephs who have spent years storing up their capital, can now step into the marketplace and buy valuable, income-producing assets for pennies on the dollar. You don't build wealth by buying when everyone is greedy and euphoric. You build wealth by being prepared to buy when everyone else is fearful and desperate. Joseph did not cause the famine, but he leveraged it. He did not merely survive the recession, he owned the recession. His preparation in the years of plenty allowed him to fundamentally restructure the entire economy in his favor during the years of lack. This is God's strategy for you. Your savings, your storehouse, is not just an emergency fund. It is your war chest. It is the capital you will deploy to buy assets when the world is having a fire sale. So you see, it was not magic, it was not luck. Joseph's prosperity was the direct result of a divine strategy executed with unwavering discipline and wisdom. It's not luck, it's listening. It's not magic, it's management. It's not chance, it's choice. Obedience in the season of plenty created dominance in the season of lack. The 7 years of plenty are upon you now, not necessarily in the global economy, but in the wisdom you have just received. This knowledge is your abundance. This blueprint is your bumper crop. The question is, What will you do with it? Will you be like the foolish who hear, feel good for a moment, and then go on consuming everything they have? Or will you be like Joseph? Will you seek God's specific plan, create a written strategy, implement a disciplined system of saving, secure your assets, see your surplus as opportunity, build something of value, and prepare to acquire assets when others are panicking? The choice is yours. The famine is coming. It always does. Economic cycles are a predictable part of life. But for the child of God who walks in the wisdom of Joseph, the famine is not something to be feared. It is the opportunity you have been preparing for all along. I want you to make a commitment to God and to yourself right now. I want you to go to the comments section and declare your new identity. Write this: I am a Joseph. I will prepare in the time of plenty. Don't just think it, type it, declare it. When you write it, you make it real. You are serving notice on your old habits and your old mindset. You are stepping into your identity as a wise steward, a ruler over your resources, and a channel of blessing for a world in need.